Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Jesi.
Hi, I'm Renny.
And I'm Josh. Jesi, it's nice to have you back on the panel after quite a few months.
Yes, it's been quite a while, but I'm happy to be back. I love it here, so yeah, thanks for including me, as always.
I always enjoyed having you on board. And Renny, it's nice to have you back.
Thank you.
You weren't gone as long as Jesi, but it still has been quite about
Still long enough.
a
Couple of months.
Yeah.
2 months or more.
And Larry is
Always
here. He's here.
It seems that way.
Always here.
This is actually where I live, right
took
on his chair.
He never leaves.
He may move around his property, but he doesn't.
It's like an RV.
Yeah. It goes where you go.
But we're going to be going over another Neil Gaiman work, one that Jesi selected. It's called American Gods. And you have the discussion starter?
I do. So I felt like this book was in-depth but also very vague in a lot of things. So I wanted to ask you guys, what was the point that Neil Gaiman wanted to get across?
I think that each culture in each era and throughout history, every peoples have had something that they believe or worship, and that those things change as time moves on and people move. For instance, we don't worship Zeus anymore. I'm surprised he didn't show up in here. They do Odin.
I was surprised by that too.
Odin and Loki.
And,
Yeah.
and they
Well, there was
did
a
Woden, they
trickster
did
kind of guy.
Wednesday. They mention Odin at the end because a lot of them have the same aspects. I think that was his main point, and it didn't matter what you believed. He thought you should believe in something.
I think it's interesting that they put this mythology in the American setting because of that sense of the way that there is a good handful of Americans that see themselves in that light. And Gaiman wants to present the idea of, can historically mythological gods stand on the backdrop of American soil?
Well, I think because everybody here came from someplace else.
Mm.
We're
Yeah.
more that way than almost any other country.
But, I mean, I can go into an argument that is what really makes us special and prosperous.
It is.
But, yeah.
And that's why 7 billion people want to come here.
There's Romania's Got Talent, where winning that show is fine and all, but you make it big when you come to America.
Oh, they all come to America. Everybody from Australia comes to America. They come from Canada to America. There's a couple of them that are always leaving if a Republican is elected. They
like
never
Rosie
leave.
O'Donnell.
And they never do.
No, they never leave. Well, why would they? The money is here. Although I don't know what this epidemic or whatever it is we're going through is going to affect the arts, because I haven't been to New York in over 2 years. I haven't been to a movie in over a year and a half.
Well, at the time of this filming, I think Broadway just opened like a day or two ago.
They are open.
Yeah,
Some of
to
them,
some people.
Some
Yeah.
of them are open.
Bruce Springsteen was the first shot. What are about the created characters in this piece? Be it Shadow, Wednesday, Mad Sweeney.
Oh, I have something technical on Shadow. I don't know that he meant this at all. He does do something with the Egyptians. The only thing is, when you went to the underworld in Egypt, the feather came from Mot. She was the goddess of equilibrium, and he has Anubis judge him. But the Egyptians had 5 aspects. We do have Horus in the book. Your live self is your Horus. That's the living god. Your dead body is the Osiris. He was the god of the dead. Your Ka is the life force, and your Ba is your soul, and you need the 2 of them to come back and recognize your mummy. And your Shadow is your essence that is always with you. And they also considered pictures like murals and statues shadows. So shadows were everything, and I guess Shadow is our everyman.
That's how they were trying to portray Shadow. Personally, I felt that the character, like himself, was not very well fleshed out. He was very
Flat.
Passive. He's very
Passive, exactly.
Yeah.
Very passive.
Which, I mean, I guess, like, even then, though, I don't think there's anything wrong with passive. He didn't have any personality. He didn't have any opinion. I don't know, I couldn't see him as a real person.
They just want, they
No,
wanted
in
to,
a way, he's not.
They wanted him
He's
to
not
be,
a human being.
Yeah.
they wanted
Supposedly,
they wanted
he's,
him to be someone that you could easily put your shoes
The
into.
son of Odin.
Be someone who's perfectly flawed, which
Yeah.
he is by
Well,
far
he
perfectly
runs
flawed.
the gamut. He's
Anybody going
Christ.
to
He's
prison for 3 years?
he's hung on the tree.
I mean, he's not Christ. Christ is hitchhiking in Afghanistan. I mean, to me, right? What's the point of this
Well,
book?
that's the
It's
being
the
tied
false
to the
premise.
tree. Yeah.
It's the false premise that gods get power from people. I mean, that's true probably of every god except the real God, who is completely absent from the story, except for a casual
noticed
mention
that
that he's
too,
hitchhiking
yeah.
in Afghanistan. Because it's this esoteric, occult stuff that we've explored in other writers before. Like when we read Faust, it's the same kind of worldview. And when we read, even though I wasn't here for the recording, when we read Steppenwolf from Herman
We
Hesse.
did Steppenwolf. Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
discover everybody. Well, he doesn't, but in almost all of them, they discover everything through drugs and sex.
Yes.
That's how they reach their epiphany.
Right, yeah, it's the enlightenment. And then the occultic thing, too. I mean, it's interesting the paradigm that he's talking about, right, between the new gods and the old gods. This war is ramping up. And that's another recurring theme in all three pieces, too, is this idea that both sides are kind of controlled by the same thing, and what matters is that people are fighting and that there is conflict, and not so much that what side you're on, or we don't care about that. That's not
Well, I
the
will say
important
this:
part.
he does flesh some of the older gods a little bit, but the new gods, the gods of media, the gods of computers and technology,
yeah.
he's terrible. That little
Oh.
boy. They Easter, even as a woman, they don't have any oomph to them. They don't have any development of them at all.
I felt like he, and it's a shame because the last two or three books that we read by Neil Gaiman, I really enjoyed, and I felt like the characters were, relatable and fleshed out, and I felt like a lot of these characters were, it was like he was trying too hard to make it what he thought people wanted to read, if that
Yeah,
makes
well, I have
sense.
to say, this
Yeah.
this is the book of the time, definitely, of the 70s, and like The Stand, which was the big fight between good and evil also. I have to say, when I started to read it, I thought, this is a book I should have read and I should have liked. On the other hand, it took me to about 100 pages before I had any interest in it much at all. And I had to drive myself to finish it. I was really surprised at that. Although I could find lots of things in it that I looked up and
That's kind of how I felt. I was like, I like the idea of it,
Yeah,
and
I
I feel
like
like it
that.
should have really the story, the premise, the characters. Like I love watching things. Like I'm a huge Marvel fan, so Loki and Thor and Odin. I'm like yes, and this
Thor
I'm
they
like
killed
no.
off. He's
He wasn't even there. I was so
Yeah.
disappointed. I'm like, oh, Chris Hemsworth. So,
I was going to imagine you.
exactly, I was going to imagine you. But I don't know. I just felt like he was trying too hard to make it so that what do you think people would like today? Odin sounds cool. Let's put him in there. That's kind of what I felt like he did. He didn't really have.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
I
interesting
don't
because
like
I did hear an
too much
interview.
depth.
I did hear an interview of him talking about how he put this thing together, and what he said was that over the course of time, he went to Iceland and he started thinking about the god. So there were like 3 things that he wanted to put in the story, but had no idea that they were even related or anything. And then over time, he decided that then this all must be the same story. Now I just got to tie them together somehow. You know what I mean? So it's like whatever.
Well, it was a big deal. It
But-
won all kinds of awards. It's still selling.
Well, yeah, because it's
you can look up the
esoteric.
quotes from it. There's pages and pages of them. I don't think any of them are.
And I'm not gonna lie, that's one of the
big.
reasons why I had suggested this as a
Yeah,
reading was because
yeah.
not only had it won so many awards and it was Neil Gaiman, but then it had become this Amazon Prime
Yes.
or Stars show that I hadn't seen, but again it's like it's Neil Gaiman, it must be good,
Yes, yes.
and I was highly disappointed
Yeah,
with the book overall.
Look, if you're going to write about this kind of thing, then the people in power are going to like it and promote it because it is anti-Christian, and that is what is at the basis of all of this.
This is
That is
Neil Gaiman already established himself too, so that helps.
sure, but still, this book is about the occult. It's about esotericism. It's about these shifting paradigms and controlling them. And from the top, you're going to have these 2 forces, right? So you got the new gods and the technology, or whatever it is, the new gods and the old gods, and they've got to come together somehow. So you make that happen.
But he never does really. He does much more with the older gods than he does with the new gods, and you wouldn't think that anybody could put up much of a fight from what he gave us of the new gods.
Right, but in the end, it doesn't matter anyway, because the gods keep coming back, even if they die. Like, right, okay, you know what Burning Man is?
Yes.
Okay, well that's it's an esoteric, occultic death ritual, sacrifice ritual that they do in the middle of the desert. And all the tech gurus go down there, eat acid, and then come up with their great ideas about how they're going to bring in the new technology.
Put people in a wicker bag and burn them up. That's what the Celts do.
Yeah. You ever see the movie The Wicker Man?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Thing.
Those are my
Except,
old...
hopefully, you're hoping in the Burning Man festival that there's nobody in the Wicker Man.
Well, we get Halloween.
Right. You really touch upon Wednesday, Mr. Wednesday.
And that's the other thing too. Is at the end. I'm sorry, I just want to talk about the this child sacrifice thing that's going on at the end. Disgusting. And it's and this guy and Neil Gaiman is like kind of ambivalent toward it, and so is Shadow. They're just like, well, it's not so good, but it keeps the town nice.
That is one thing.
Right.
There is no, he doesn't, and the author doesn't seem to have any value judgment at all, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right. Jesus is off hitchhiking in Afghanistan. That's his value judgment.
And Wednesday is a con man. He does the two-man con.
Right.
To me, he reminds me of
with
Jeff
the trickster
Bridges.
God.
Jeff Bridges.
So
the way
that was low key, right? Was the
Low-key.
was a cellmate?
Yeah.
Who would end up to be Mr. World.
Well, he's a trickster god.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, he's the trickster guy, yeah. So who helps him with the con. So he pretends to be the opposite side. Same thing happens in Faust, where Faust is advising the king, and meanwhile the devil's controlling the opposite army. And in the end, they're in
I think another instance where Neil Gaiman is blending in the fantastical with reality is Neverwhere, but I think he does a better job connecting the two in Neverwhere than he does here. I think here it gets very...
this is kind of a form of
bizarre.
magical realism. The best magical realism actually is a movie. It's directed by Robert Redford called The Malagra Beanfield War, where we have an Aztec god who's a character in the movie. If you ever get a chance to see it, or I think it is available rarely, but on DVD, that is a fantastic example of it. This is not a really good example of it.
It kind of makes sense a little bit that maybe he had 3 different stories that he tried just to try
not even stories,
together.
plot points.
Plot
like
points.
the first one was
Like-
the idea of the airplane, okay, where some guy gets on an airplane and then the other guy knows that he's on the airplane and offers him a job.
Yeah.
And says you're late. That was one of the 3 ideas that eventually
Well, so,
became
like, it
the
kinda
1,000
makes
page
sense.
sprawling road novel.
See,
about-
now it kind of makes a little sense
there
to me
is a
where he
little
was
road
trying to do
novel in
too
it.
much.
Oh yeah, he talks that up a lot in the interview. He really looks at this as a road novel. That's what it is. He says one of the interesting things that he says is that because he's a British, and he says in the UK, 100 miles is a long way, and in the United States, 100 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
So
There
he's
is
trying to play
something
with
true in that. He should have put that in the book.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why it's a road model, because in order to kind of capture America, he says you got
The radius, the
really
radius in Britain
travel
is
a lot.
pretty close with one another. So
Everything's little. Well, in
Yeah,
Europe,
it's smaller.
everything's little.
So it's much easier to meet up with people in Britain
Yes.
than it is for people here.
Although in
because-
Russian novels, they always go from Moscow to Vladivostok and back, and always run into the same people all the time. So it depends on your point of view.
I kind of liked it better than I think I should. I mean, Shadow, yeah, he was boring, but I definitely sympathized with him throughout a lot of the story. He was kind of the thread that kept me coming back to finish it.
I would say yes, especially because they incorporate these events that there are these chapters that take place in the past, and they make their way forward. They seem very out of place.
What did y'all think of McSweeney?
Oh, he's Irish, so I like him.
I thought he was just a very interesting character, and
I
he
don't
didn't
think
strike
he
me
should
as
have
some
been
sort of...
killed off.
Yeah, and I was honestly a little confused as to why he was killed
Well,
off.
also,
and maybe
I will
missed
bring up,
something.
why do they have
It's nihilism.
Lara as a corpse
When you have moral
wandering
relativism,
around?
you have a lot of nihilism, so it's all...
Why do they have
meaningless.
Laura as
Kind
a
of like it's kind of like
I-
Beatrice and in Dante's Divine Comedy.
I felt there were a few things in this book that
And
were
then they put her-
unnecessary, and I kind of like. I guess I understand why she was there, like to because he was mourning her, but at the same time, I was like, why is she actually a corpse walking around?
She's
like
a
I could see her as
despicable
like
character.
Yeah.
Because she got a gold
And,
coin.
but still, it's like, so McSweeney was only there to give him the gold coin to give to her.
How much
Like,
he loved her,
I don't
and
know.
remember how much he loved her. Without,
Like, I felt like she would have been better as like a vision that he kept seeing, instead of an
Kinda
actual
like,
corpse
kinda like
following him
Obi-Wan
around
with Star Wars.
And killing
Yes.
people for
and
it.
killing people for him. Yeah.
For him.
as a strong memory and touchstone. Yes, but making her an apple when she spits up. Oh, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
maggots and everything, yeah.
That's terrible.
Not only that, like, and I guess maybe it's because Mr. Wednesday is, you know, a god, and nobody seems to be overly concerned by the fact that there's a corpse walking around killing people. He's like, no, she was here. There's her footprints, and it's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Did you guys do it? Did you? Never mind.
Let's
Like,
talk,
no.
let's talk about how she gets there in the first place. Has anybody here read Thinner?
Yeah, well, I saw the movie.
It's Billy Hacking or
I remember it. I don't
The
think I
reason
read
that he,
No, I was
the
like,
reason
I'm
that
familiar
he
with
was,
it.
the gypsy put the curse on him was because he hit the gypsy with the car. He ran over the gypsy with the car. The reason he got in that position is because he was having oral sex in an extramarital affair. So this is the same way Laura
Okay.
dies.
Right, yeah.
Gotcha.
So
What
I
is,
mean,
Yeah.
she's
what is
definitely...
it, what is it about
most
people
likely.
having oral sex in cars? Why can't you wait to get to the damn hotel?
Come on, it's not that far.
There actually, I can't think of it is. There's a couple famous rock stars that this supposedly also happened to.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's a thing,
So-
and
then
that's
there's
probably
kind
what
of-
causes
He
the
has
accident.
these little tiny touch things that, like, he calls one of the characters. She was an actress, and from Ghost Story, the ghost when she was in one of her manifestations looked like that actress in the 1920s. So he has these little things that wander in and out. And there's probably many more of them that I didn't see, but I don't know why they're there or why they or what they're supposed to mean.
Yeah, like a lot of
There's
things
like,
were just kind of thrown in.
It's Gnostic, right? There's a part of this story that is definitely Gnostic, and we see this especially when they talk about going quote unquote behind the scenes, right? When you're not a part of physical reality anymore, but you're in the spirit world. But anyway, that's a Gnostic idea, is that that's where the real reality is, in the spirit world, and this material world is all illusion and not real. So that's part of it, I think, is that he's coming at it from this point of view, because we do see them going behind the scenes all the time, and that's where all the real stuff happens. But yeah, so I think that there's an element of Gnosticism in there, and just an element of, like, because he's so morally relativistic that, you know, it's like, here's this woman who is doing something horrible at the time that she dies. So she, in reality, she very well likely probably would be dead, like in the real world view of Christianity, right? She's not going to have eternal life in the living world of God because of the horrible things that she was doing at the time of her death. Most likely. I'm not sure what. That's an
He started the
attempted
tangent and
explanation.
then what?
Well, the Gnosticism thing, right, is because of the fact that, okay, the things in the physical world aren't going to make sense. Like, what does it mean to be physically dead? It doesn't matter, because really, your spirit is trying to go to the next level where it escapes from this
All
realm.
goes to the next.
Oddly,
plane.
he has. I guess it's Wednesday. He has all the things that he can do because he wants her to be real again. He wants her to be alive, and he says he can do this. He can. There's a whole 2 or 3 pages of what he can do, but he can't bring her back to life. I don't know whether that was the point, that there are some ends that cannot be changed, whether they're material, physical, or whatever. But I didn't like her as a character, and I really couldn't see much purpose for her being in the.
How he feels about how she died. Shadow doesn't even really seem like he's bothered by it, but not so much, because it's like, well, I didn't know she was cheating on me, and I loved her, and I knew she loved me, and, you know, okay, now she's gone, and yeah, she was cheating on me, but that's not the woman I remember. So he still loves her. It's like, why did it even matter how she died? Like, what was the point of that whole situation? Because it didn't really do anything to further
Well,
Shadow.
it
he knows
drags him
that
down,
she dies in the car with Bobby, but he doesn't know what they were doing or not doing.
But
That's
he-
told to us by somebody else.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like
He would've
another
never-
one of the things that was totally unnecessary, in my opinion.
He would've-
was like the 4 or 5 pages of the girl, like, oh, she was sucking his
Yes.
words
right.
and more bad words and unnecessary flow of raunchy words. And it's like, okay, we got it. We don't need 4 pages of this. Like, we get it. Okay, we know what she was doing. But that didn't change
Well, he does that.
how he
Oddly,
felt about it.
He does that. He will have it's mostly dialogue. He will have all this dialogue, and you'll have the F word all over the place, and then you'll have tens of pages of dialogue that never occurs again, and then all of a sudden, yes, you have this kind of a scene.
They had a lot of scenes that I felt like were also unnecessary too. So I don't know. I felt like half the book was unnecessary.
So his style certainly varied.
Yes, it changed a lot.
There are so many better Neil Gaiman books.
It
than
was,
this.
yeah. I felt like this one was
But
very
this is the one.
inconsistent.
This is the one. I mean, I read all
People,
kinds of
yeah.
criticism about it. They thought this was just.
They like the substance
cat's
matter
meow.
and the way it responds to mythology.
Well, the other thing I was telling you beforehand when we were talking while we were waiting for everybody to get here, I thought I was missing something, that maybe all of the overtly sexual scenes, I was like, are these supposed to mean something? Maybe I just missed it. So I tried to Google it, and of course Google gave me nothing, except how it was so powerful a scene out of this show where at the very beginning where the woman is with the man who's worshiping her. We all know which scene I'm talking about. Okay, apparently that was some major feminist empowering moment
Well, that's
on the
like
TV
70s.
show. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was a guy, like, being eaten by a woman, not with her mouth. Like, how is that feministic empowering? Like, it's not. It's just an unnecessary scene. And maybe I'm recalling, but we never went back to that woman, did we?
No, we
Like,
didn't.
what was the point of
Well, I
that?
think she might have been Bisquick, right? Was that the name, Bisquick, or one of these guys that ends up getting
She was
killed?
pancakes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she does. come
Yeah, I
back.
was like, she doesn't come. Like, what was the point of that entire scene? Nothing. Like, I got nothing out of that except for maybe like a couple cringes. Like, what am I
Well,
reading?
he even does that with his whole thing with the African slaves who come over, and you would think maybe there was going to be something positive that happens towards the end of this whatever, but the woman, the brother dies in the revolt in what is today Haiti, and she becomes an old wise woman, and then that's like the end of that, and we're gone.
Was that the story? Was that the con woman story?
No,
Because there was a con woman story like halfway through the book that I
No, it was
actually
a different
really
one.
enjoyed better than the story it was in.
Yeah.
Like-
There were two different stories.
She
Yeah,
became
okay.
she became supposedly the mentor of Marie Laveau, the famous voodoo woman in Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. and
Maybe-
then the,
okay.
the one guy ends up in Haiti. He's part of the tribe.
He's one of the leaders of the Haitian revolt, but he gets killed.
Right.
And she goes on, and she's traded here, and she's sold there, and that happens, and she becomes this theoretically old wise woman, and she has these things to pass on. But when you read them, they are not things that anybody could use or pass on. The idea, like, you could swallow a frog, it would cure your fever, and then they just leave her.
Yeah. It made no sense to me. And like I said, that one story I really did actually like, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. Oh, wait, why is this in the story? It doesn't make sense, but I like this story more than I like what's surrounding it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, like when you're dealing with this morally relative kind of worldview, where gods are just whatever we say they are, and nothing really means anything ultimately, then it's just going to end up being nihilistic. Like, you're not going to be able to tell compelling stories when you adapt that as a framework from which you're going to try to. It's just because there's nothing good, true, or beautiful in it. It's not how reality is.
No.
Well, if we're going to give it a rating, I would give it a 1.5 to a 2. I would think it would be worth reading just because it won all its awards and so many people liked it, and it's still a big deal. But on the other hand, if I hadn't had to read it and finish it here, I might have quit before I got to 100 pages and then decided, well, I want to see how this ends.
1.5 or 2 pretty much means you don't want to read it. Larry?
Yeah, I was going to just give it a 0.5 star because I didn't like it very much. And the only reason I give it a 0.5 star is because, like I said, I kind of like... The one part of it that was interesting was Shadow to me. Like, he's just the way he... I kind of liked him. Like, I guess his stoicism, especially toward the beginning when he figures out, how he's going to get through prison, is just fucking low and, teaching himself coin tricks. I don't know. I thought he started out as somewhat admirable, somewhat sympathetic, but then as time went on, and he just continues to get muddier and muddier by everything going on around him. So it's a 0.5 star.
Jesse?
Yeah, I'm going to go 1 star. I suggested this book because of all the ratings and the rave
Yes.
reviews and all these things, and I was like, oh, pop culture, another good way to read something that everybody knows about, and so highly disappointed. I felt like a lot of the characters were flat. I felt like, as I've mentioned before, tons of unnecessary content that just had no purpose other than to just make you cringe, or go, stop it. I really did like the idea. I felt like if that idea was presented in a different way, it would have been much better. So 1 star.
Well, I will say this. I know that there's a 450-page version, and I know there's a 750-page version, and I would
More
never
unnecessary
want to
pages.
read them.
Oh, my mass market paperback is 742 pages.
Josh is like, speaking of which.
But
Oh, I did an audiobook. It was about 26 hours.
Yeah, that's...
I'm going to be generous.
I did
2 stars.
novels.com, and it was 202
Because
pages, although they said it was
I think that
228.
it started out very engaging, but then it just started to, once you got
See, I thought it was the opposite.
Once
It
you got
wasn't
hooked with it.
engaging. It became a little bit more engaging as you got a little bit further into it, but I didn't think it was engaging to begin with.
I preferred following Shadow's immediate story and the immediate interactions, him with Wednesday, him with Wednesday's Korea characters, Cernaborg.
Oh yeah, they were fun. I actually did like them.
But then once you start incorporating your traditional gods and you put them in this very bizarro situation, kind of like that book Cat Magic way back when, that just went from this following this diabolical doctor to this Wiccan hoodoo voodoo thing. I think this is, it just gets way out of hand, and this is Neil Gaiman's weakest link.
Yeah, it gets bogged down too, right? Too many characters, I think. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
many
they
dreams.
they come and go. I think it was interesting. He when Lucille Ball was talking to him,
Yeah.
or Lucy Ricardo.
That
Or the
was so
cast
weird.
of Cheers too.
That
I
was
like,
so weird.
Now
Cast of
that
Cheers.
had to be in the revision. The cast of Cheers.
Because they're like, they're 80s.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the GPS, but we didn't have that
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
70s either.
This version, it's the 10th anniversary edition, and this came out this was first published in 2001.
Well,
This
the
came
copyright
out-
is 1972 to 2001, so he
Yeah,
must have
could
done
be.
different
It
versions.
is- yeah.
Yeah, the amount of time that it took
Like
them
the
to put
leaves
it
of
together.
grass that
I
have been
would
never
like to know which
finished.
version everybody's ranting and raving about, because I never missed it.
Well, I don't know. That's just what I'm saying. It was a TV show. I guess it wasn't a movie. I don't know how you would do it as a movie. You could do Burl Ives as Mr. Wednesday.
I think you nailed it, though. I think it's just like, it was the content that everybody is raving about, not necessarily the actual book itself.
Okay.
Maybe.
But it's kind of like I remember you taught Cymbeline. The whole one of the gods came in on a bird.
We have a Thunderbird here.
Yeah, that one. It's kind of like that, where they're just incorporating. They're throwing
these symbols
for-
out. Oh, and he's only got one eye, of course. Give me a break.
Alrighty. If you are interested in reading American Gods, I say you should read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is
I
my
love that
favorite
one. Yeah,
Neil
that one's
Gaiman book.
Wonderful. I love that one.
Here is my copy of the book. I thought Neverwhere was pretty good. I thought Neverwhere was good. I thought Coraline was pretty good.
I saw the animated movie of
This one
Coraline.
was not.
That's another one. It's it's traumatizing, right? That's what it is. It's media that is meant to traumatize you. Listen, that's a kid's movie.
Legend lines?
Alrighty.
No, and the mother, like the mother figure, like trying to poison her, kind of like disgusting.
Alrighty then, be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading. Hi there, this is Josh, and on the next episode of Literary Gladiators, Larry, Jesi, and I will be discussing We by Evgeny Zamyatin. If you like what you see on our channel, please support us on our Patreon, for the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content. Thank you, and until next time, keep reading.